The new balance patch dropped on Tuesday and well, it depends what you play, but there are lots of changes to classes in all game modes. Now let's talk about the changes. I will not go through each line and tell you what it means, Teapot already did that. I will just tell you what it means for the class and if it was buffed or nerfed. And one more thing, I will only mention what it means in PvE as I'm a noob when it comes to world versus world and PvP. Let's start with Engineer. This class was adjusted quite a bit in the last few patches, specifically the Mechanist. It seems Arenanet is focusing on a role or build in each round of balance patches, and this time it was the turn for the DPS build. However, it's not that bad. It just means you'll need to learn how to use your shift signet if you didn't already, and you'll still be top DPS. I'm talking about the power DPS build only, because the mech will be far from the user most of the time. For healing and condi builds, the mech has to be in melee range, where the user will be too, so less of an impact. We also got some direct buffs to Holosmith and to both power and condi builds, which is awesome. I already saw some people using Holosmith when I was testing the classes yesterday, and it was refreshing after the mech fest that we had. Let's move on to Elementalist. This is another class that was buffed quite a bit to get back in line with Virtuoso and Mechanist. Catalyst received the biggest buffs, and all I can say is that it feels a lot better to play now, and you'll be able to do higher damage without timing everything perfectly. Of course, if you do it, you'll reach higher numbers. Raul already posted a benchmark for 46k, which is crazy, but not everyone can reach that number, so hopefully Arenanet do not nerf it again in the next patch. The other spec that received some buffs is Weaver, which is still the most fun to play in my opinion, but in order to be a top DPS you need to be a very good piano player compared to Tempest and Catalyst. And we also got some changes to the Scepter and Dagger weapons, which directly affects the heal-alike version of Tempest. This is just a switch for the main weapon, which I do not understand. I like to use the Scepter on my heal-alike Tempest because it doesn't have any movement skill that can be accidentally pressed and hit you off a cliff. But don't worry, you can still play it with Scepter, it's just that you need to stay a bit more in water attunement. Next, we have the Guardian, and the first class with more nerfs than buffs. Firebrand was nerfed significantly, and I think this time it was more than intended. The heal Firebrand build is still good, you won't be able to spam each skill in each tome, but with some planning you'll be fine. But for quickness and DPS Firebrand, you are in a world of pain, as you need more planning to use the pages than an Elementalist, and at the time of writing this, the internal cooldown for recharging pages doesn't work correctly. Tuesday was a sad day for Firebrand mains, but it wasn't a sad day for Willbenders, because they received some buffs, and all I can say is that now it can compete with Mech and Virtuoso. Not with Catalyst, but it's also a lot simpler to play, so I'd say it has a good balance now. I tested the Conde DPS variant, and I wasn't expecting the changes to be easily visible, but they are. Dragon Hunter also received some buffs, but is still lower on the DPS table compared to Willbender and Firebrand. Next we have Mesmer, which also received some buffs, specifically the Necromancer DPS build. So if you are good with this before, now you should be a top DPS class, but for me I won't even try to see how close I will be to the benchmark. Mirage received some nerfs to the Stacks build, as it was able to provide might and the lack while also doing big DPS with the axe clones. Now it was adjusted so you need to choose either DPS or boons. I had time to test the Alak DPS build and it feels a lot better now to provide alacrity for a player that didn't play the class since launch. Virtuoso was... actually it wasn't changed for this patch, and in my opinion it didn't need any changes as it is in a decent place. Now let's move on to Necromancer, specifically the Reaper, as it was buffed and it was the main focus of the balance patch for Necro. After the preview patch notes, there were quite a few opinions that the Reaper is buffed just a bit every time, but not enough to make a difference, and Arenanet listened and added a few more tweaks to make lives easier for Reapers. I haven't tested it yet, but people seemed happy with it. Harbinger received some bug fixes, and that's about it for Necro in PvE. Next we have the Ranger, which like Necro had the focus on one spec only, Untamed. Untamed received some quality of life improvements with Fervent Force proccing against Defiant foes too. This is a direct buff to the DPS Alack build, as for example in almost all IBS strikes you are not able to provide alacrity reliably. Revenant is next, and this class also got some buffs to Herald and Vindicator. Herald was buffed a bit and received some bug fixes for the quickness build, which should make it easier to have 100% uptime now. Vindicator was also on the buffs list and now is a viable choice for group content. It also received a fix to the dodge mechanic, since you are able to dodge while being immobilized. Renegade also received some buffs to nothing, which really sucks because I was looking to Righteous Rebel and hoping it will get like a 15% increase in boon duration and get back in the viable boon builds, but ArenaNet said no. Thief is next, and this one was a controversial one when ArenaNet said that they will be reducing the range on Deadeye's rifle. Fortunately, that did not happen. Well, not to all skills. However, the dagger was massively buffed and brings Deadeye back to the top of the DPS table. Daredevil has some minor buffs too, but nothing to talk about, and Spectre received the much needed damage reduction in Shroud after the latest balance patch. And finally, Warrior, which did not need much adjustment unless you are playing a Berserker. This spec received some buffs, but after the initial impression it's still not that good. I will let Warrior mains to test this and maybe I'm wrong, but the other important news is that Hammer received some buffs which actually make it usable, so Hammer Warrior is back, can't wait to see some benchmarks for this one. Spellbreaker also had a small buff to Breaching Strike. Overall, this was a good balance patch and I think ArenaNet is heading in the right direction, and posting a preview of the patch notes in advance definitely helps. I will be playing more on my Elementalist and Mesmer now, since the last two balance patches they had to sit on the bench. Let me know if you switch your main too after the balance patches or continue to play the same class. If you want to see more content like this, please let me know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, please click the like and subscribe buttons.